Everyone thinks. The danger of the Isle of Man TT is in the speed, but it's not, because at over 186 miles per hour, roughly 300 kilometers per hour, you're still in control. The problem starts when you think you're safe, because this isn't a racetrack, it's a public road. During the Isle of Man TT, open streets turn into a circuit stretching over 37 miles, about 60 kilometers, with no runoff areas, no margin, no second chances. Houses, walls, poles, replacing any kind of protection. And in the middle of it, bikes pushing over 200 horsepower, charging forward without pause. At first, everything just feels fast, manageable. But as the lap unfolds, it becomes clear that the danger isn't in a single point, but in how everything connects. Because there's no breathing room. Every section demands something different. And when you think you've found the rhythm, the circuit changes the rules. And maybe the real risk isn't in the most famous sections. Are those really the most dangerous points? Or is there something even worse that no one is seeing? Before getting into these sections, you need to understand one thing. These roads you're looking at aren't built for racing. They're used every single day. People drive here to work, to go home, to live their normal lives, and then, for a few days a year, everything changes. These streets turn into the mountain course, stretching over 37 miles, about 60 kilometers, cutting through villages, fields, forests, and climbing into fully exposed sections of the island. And unlike any modern circuit, there are no runoff areas here. If you get it wrong, there's no gravel, no space, no recovery. There are walls, poles, houses, trees, and in many sections, there's nothing between you and the impact. Now add to that, bikes pushing over 200 horsepower, charging flat out for minutes at a time. No interruption, no pause, there's no breathing room. It's a continuous chain of decisions, where every corner demands absolute precision. And what makes it even more extreme is that this circuit isn't consistent. It keeps changing. Some sections are fast and open, others are tight and technical. Some even feel manageable, until you realize the margin for error is still zero. And that's exactly why there are specific sections where all of this combines in the worst possible way. Speed, geometry, irregularities, and an unforgiving proximity to real-world obstacles. These are the sections that turn the TT from dangerous into something completely off the scale, and it all starts right after the launch. It all starts too fast. The Isle of Man TT gives you no time to adapt. Right after the launch, speed climbs aggressively into an environment that, outside of racing, is just a public road. And that's when Bray Hill hits. A fast downhill section early in the lap that compresses the bike hard, right as the rider is still settling into rhythm. As speed builds, the suspension is pushed to the edge of its travel to hold stability, while the rider's body absorbs that compression, fighting to keep the bike aligned. It's not a dramatic impact visually, but it's enough to destabilize every reference point within the first few seconds. And that's the real problem. Bray Hill comes too early, before a full read of the road, before the body has adjusted. And that's what makes this section critical within the context of the lap, because there's no time to reset. The moment the bike stabilizes, the circuit already throws the next variation. The climb into Ago's Leap comes almost immediately after, and here the dynamic shifts again. Under acceleration, the front end tends to lighten, partially losing contact with the ground for brief moments. It's not a full jump, but it's enough to reduce your sense of control in that instant. Steering goes light. Line reading depends far more on the rider's memory than on the bike's immediate feedback. And when the front comes back down, any misalignment, no matter how small, has to be corrected instantly. No margin, no time. And this is where riding stops being purely physical and becomes decisional. Because just seconds later, the rider reaches Balagare Corner, or, as they call it, Balascari, a fast, blind corner where the entry happens at high speed and the exit simply isn't visible at the moment of commitment. Here, the rider depends entirely on memory of the line. There's no late adjustment, no mid-corner correction. The decision happens before the turn, and any hesitation compromises the entire trajectory. And it was right here that one of the most critical moments of recent years happened. In 2017, James Hillier comes in slightly off the ideal line. It's not an obvious mistake, but it's enough to almost send him down. The front wheel loses grip for an instant, triggering a chain of instability. The bike starts to oscillate violently, drifting offline as the rider fights to regain control. For a few seconds, he's practically lost the bike. His body shifts across the seat, the trajectory completely unravels, and the situation rapidly closes in on a scenario where a crash would be inevitable. But he saves it, right on the limit. And that moment makes one thing clear about the TT. The problem rarely starts with a big mistake. It starts small, almost invisible, and it escalates too fast to be calmly corrected. From here, the circuit changes again. The challenge stops being just about decision-making and starts involving the bike's behavior itself. At Barrigaro, especially in the section known as the bottom, the road creates a deeper compression, where the suspension has to respond with precision to maintain stability. When the bike hits the lowest point, the load spikes rapidly, demanding fine control from the rider on the exit. If there's any misalignment at that moment, the bike can react unpredictably as it rebounds. And here, unlike other sections, that reaction comes fast. No room for wide corrections. Barrigaro isn't a visually spectacular section, but it's a technical one, and that's exactly what makes it dangerous, because it demands precision at the exact moment the bike is being pushed to its limits. But the circuit shifts again, and this time, the surrounding environment becomes the main factor. As the rider enters Kirkmichael, the open sections disappear, and the course cuts straight through a residential area at high speed. And here, perception changes completely. Everything closes in: walls, gates, facades, poles, houses, all rushing past just inches from the handlebars. The margin for error, already minimal, practically vanishes, and that changes how every movement is made. It doesn't take a big mistake, a small bump, a slight wobble. That's already enough to compromise the line, because there are no runoff areas, and every correction has to be immediate and precise. That's why this section is often described as one of the most mentally demanding, not because of track complexity, but because of the consequences of any mistake. And even after all that, the circuit still has another kind of challenge waiting. Climbing into the mountain section, the environment shifts once again. The road opens up, the close obstacles disappear, and for the first time, there's a visual sense of space. But that sense can be deceptive. In the veranda section, what defines the risk isn't a single point, but the sequence, a series of fast right-hand corners, where the precision of the first directly affects all the ones that follow. If the entry isn't exact, the rider has to adjust through the sequence, and every adjustment eats away at the margin for the next section. And what's beyond the road? Absolutely nothing. No barriers, no guardrails, very little space, and no real margin for recovery. The mistake doesn't happen instantly, it builds. And by the time it becomes clear, there's no margin left to fix it safely. And that's what separates this section from the others. Here, the danger doesn't come from a single moment, but from accumulation. And when all of this is stacked together, it becomes clear that the TT isn't dangerous for just one reason, but for how these factors rotate and stack: compression, reading, decision, bike response, environment, sequence. Every section demands something different. No pause, no second chance, and often, no warning. And even then, there's still something most people overlook. Because in the end, the most dangerous point on the lap isn't necessarily the fastest or the most famous, but the one you dared to underestimate for just a single second. After going through all these sections, it becomes clear that the danger in the Isle of Man TT isn't in a single specific point. It's not just in the speed, not just in the layout. It's in how all of it combines, without ever giving the rider a chance to reset. Every section demands something different. Bray Hill demands control right at the start, when the body still hasn't adapted. Ego's Leap reduces the bike's reference for a brief moment. Balascari demands commitment before the corner even begins. Barrigaro demands precise response from the machine. Kirkmichael eliminates any margin around you, and the veranda turns small mistakes into something progressive. But what truly defines the TT is the fact that these challenges don't come separately. They come in sequence, and that completely changes the logic of riding. Because here, it's not enough to be fast. You have to adapt all the time, with every corner and every new section you go through, with no guarantee you'll get a second chance to fix anything. And this is exactly where many people get it wrong. Because when people talk about the most dangerous sections of the TT, the instinct is to look at the most famous ones, the fastest, the most impressive. But in reality, those aren't always the ones that define the real risk. Because in the TT, the mistake rarely starts big. It starts small, almost invisible. And that's where everything changes. Because unlike a traditional circuit, there's no margin to absorb that mistake. It stays with you, It builds, it evolves, and by the time it fully reveals itself, there's no space left to correct it. And maybe that's why so many riders describe the TT in a similar way. Not as a track, but as something that's constantly testing you. Not just your technique, but your consistency. And above all, your ability to never underestimate what looks simple. And that's exactly what makes the Isle of Man TT different from any other race in the world. Now, I want to hear from you. Which of these sections do you think demands the most from the rider? The fastest one, or the most technical? And more importantly, do you think there's an even more dangerous section that almost no one talks about? Drop your comment down below. I want to hear your take on this madness. If this video kept you hooked all the way through, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to keep exploring stories of extreme challenges, impossible races, and people pushing beyond the limit. And hey, there's another video on your screen right now. Click it, and I'll see you there. Keep exploring. The world doesn't stop, and neither do we.